This is an ad. You're hearing this ad on Jake Landau's podcast. Would you like to put an ad in this place? Email ads at jakelandau.ca and talk about ad rates to put your words in my mouth. Thank you. It is Sunday, December 14th, and it's getting pretty late with Jake Landau. Folks, it's our final episode of the year before we send you off into the holiday season. I didn't intentionally think of that really, but I've sort of realized on December 21st, none of you are going to be caring about any political bullshit. I will still write a few things, but to be frank, it's not the time of year we want to think about these things. We want to be more optimistic than talking about politics. And optimism isn't the point of our show. Optimism is a thing I haven't touched in a very long time, and I miss it dearly. But this week we have a very great guest for you. He's a returning guest. It's his second time on the program. His name is Amir. He's the host of This is Vancouver on Czech News in Vancouver. And it is great to have him back on the show. Mo, thank you for coming back to the program.
Hello, Jake. A pleasure to be on. I'm glad you clarified about the optimism, because I am certainly not going to give anyone any optimism today.
Do we ever make anyone optimistic on this show? It's genuine.
Not talking about politics.
No.
Listen, I think the holidays are a great time. Happy Hanukkah, Merry Christmas, whatever you celebrate. It's a great time.
Yeah.
Don't focus on politics because you will be depressed.
No, yeah. But it's like, I mean, I laugh a lot of the time, but it's out of depression and fear.
yeah, me too. That's most of my cackling, to be honest.
In good news, though, I have a new baby sibling. They were born a few days ago, and they're having a great time. So that's something.
Congratulations!
Yeah,
that's a huge age gap.
I know. Yeah. Well, there's a divorce and remarriage involved here.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
Still,
think a Modern Family situation, but there was no kid brought in.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
Congratulations. That's awesome.
No, it's great. It's great. It's the first time I've had a brother. I have two sisters now, my older one and my younger one. It's fun. And I'm totally not cynical about the world my two younger siblings are going to grow up into.
Well, now it's all on you to make it a better place for your younger brother.
I mean, I was already trying to make it a better place for the older sister I have.
Oh, we cut out there for a second.
Oh, sorry. You cut out? Well, I could still hear you the whole time.
Someone cut out.
Oh, well, I'm good.
Okay,
anyway,
good.
We're all good. But no, yeah. So it's I'm totally not cynical at all about the world my younger siblings are growing up into. And I mean, I was already trying to make it a better place for like my older sister, but damn, things are getting worse, man.
Yeah, that's the general pessimism that I think everyone is feeling, that everything is way worse than we remember it. And there's like a longing to go back to perhaps a simpler time. We're seeing that in all sorts of circles. And I don't know, I feel like there's no grand vision of like what... Oh, see, talking about getting into pessimism, you just got me started. But like, I feel like there's no grand vision of like what this country will look like in 10 years.
I have like
now,
a very specific
That's my issue.
year I want to go back to, sometime in the 2010s when like Me Too was in full effect. So we didn't have songs like Blurred Lines on the radio. But also like when people still took like gay and trans rights seriously, like when we were in the full
the golden age of woke.
Whenever
I think it was like 2017.
When my university, the University of Toronto, had renovated everything to gender neutral washrooms. I hope they still have those. I love those as a student because I would just randomly walk into a washroom because I wouldn't have to think about what gender it is, because no one should have to go to it. You get what I mean? It was an elegant time, a more civilized age.
The golden age of woke, man.
No,
it's over.
I miss it. But the fact that we have nostalgia for it now is a thing too. Like that is a cause for optimism, because I know they turn woke into a pejorative, but god damn it, I am woke. Like I care about the inherent social injustices in our society, and I want to resolve them, even if that makes the people who benefit from those injustices upset. If that makes me woke, then fucking I'm woke. I'd rather be awake than asleep.
Yeah, I never saw woke as a pejorative. Like I guess it was obviously weaponized as such. I just
I
thought
mean, it
it
was
was like
originated by the black
kind
community to describe people awake to these so inequities. So, like, it was weaponized and
yeah, no, no,
stolen as a
and I
pejorative.
understand for sure. Yeah, and I understand kind of the origins and then how it was co-opted to become this pejorative, but even at its height it was kind of a superficial word, and it just meant it was like the same as saying like I'm a free thinker. I think for myself, right? Someone who is woke is looking at power structures all the time. Like that was just kind of what it meant.
What if I am looking at power
But now
structures all
it's
the
I don't
time?
know. We should reclaim it. No, no, we should no, and that's a
I,
good thing. But I think we should just reclaim that
I
word
don't
as like
even
not a
say that
pejorative.
like egotistically. It's just as a columnist on a podcast or talking about politics. I feel like I'm literally looking at power structures all the fucking time.
Well, that's the world we live in, right? And I think both sides on the left and right are looking at it, and you can maybe critique the analytical lens that each side uses, but I feel like politically we're all doing that to a certain degree.
Mm. Well, I mean, if we're looking for depressing news in particular, let's talk about BC. Let's talk about your stomping grounds.
Yeah,
There's been a lot going on in
please.
BC politically. The BC Conservatives fractured, then the BC Conservatives lost their leader. Now the Fracture Party, that's a third party or fourth party, is doing other things. I'm honestly a little bit lost as someone in Ontario. I know a lot of my readers from outside BC who don't follow politics may not be entirely familiar with this spectacle. Could you just give us like a proper timeline here and explain what's going on?
Sure. And I'm doing this without notes. This is off the dome, but I'll try to explain as best as I can. We had a provincial election last October, so October 2024. In that, the incumbent BC NDP government barely won a majority. We're
It
talking
was
about
like
like a one,
44 seats to 43 seats.
yeah, a one seat majority where the speaker, breaks the tie, all that stuff. So this government so
Something the
far, I think,
federal liberals are so eager to get for themselves. But we'll
yeah,
talk
yeah,
about
they're going
that
to
in the
get it the
back
hard way.
half.
And so in the last year, I don't think it's been a great year for the BC NDP. There's just no wins on any particular policy file. There's been a lot of controversies, a lot of unclarity around things like Aboriginal title, which has now become the biggest issue in BC. But I think the polling for the BC NDP has been pretty strong. And I would argue that it's been inflated because of the dysfunction on on the center right or right wing party, which is the Conservative Party of BC, which using the name conservative does not have a formal association with the federal conservatives. There is obviously a relationship there, a lot of overlap, but no like formal
Right. Because
relationship,
I
to
do
be
have a
clear.
fair number of listeners from America who are listening, I guess, aspirationally to our first world problems. Uh, in Canada, the provincial and territorial, if the territory has political parties, which I think only one of the three does, uh, but for provincial politics, subnational politics, they're separate parties from the federal parties. They're
Although the BC NDP is associated
unless
in
they're
some
the
formal
NDP.
sense, yeah,
Yeah,
with the federal
unless
NDP.
they're the NDP. The NDP are
Yeah.
the one because it's an important tenet of socialism to encourage the fraternity of all human beings,
The solidarity,
yeah,
yes, absolutely.
federal and
So
provincial.
you have the Conservative Party of BC, which is the official opposition, and throughout the last year, there's just been a lot of division within the party. And some of it, I think, is from some of the more reactionary voices that really want to fight culture war issues all the time. I would argue, they don't seem particularly interested in governing. They just seem interested in grievance politics and getting people riled up.
Right.
And so what we had seen was there was a breakaway of one woman in particular, Dallas Brody, an MLA, and two who followed her, Tara Armstrong and Jordan Keeley. Jordan Keeley ended up sitting as an independent, but Tara Armstrong and Dallas Brody ended up founding this party, One BC, which federally is akin to like the PPC in a sense. And I know people are going to be mad, oh, they're not the PPC. They're not. I'm just giving you a broad analogy of what this breakaway
Like the
party
idea of
is.
further right than the BC conservatives.
Yes, and so a great example, and this is actually true. You'll have people on the BCNDP saying, we are settlers on this land. So that's what the BCNDP will say. The Conservative Party of BC will say, no, we're not settlers. That's divisive language. And then One BC will say, yeah, we're settlers and we're proud of building this province.
Ah.
So that kind of gives you like,
Well,
that's one example, but that gives you the
well,
gradients
I've
there.
seen some of Dallas Brody's postings, and she's a bit on residential schools. Hmm.
Yeah, it's like, and they put out, so One BC, because they had two sitting MLAs, Dallas Brody, the leader, and Tara Armstrong. They also achieved official party status, which means that they were
You
entitled to
only
certain
need
caucus
two
funds.
MLAs to have party status in BC.
Yeah,
That's a lot
it's a
less.
low
That's
bar.
a lot lower than Ontario. The Liberals, I think, needed to get over a dozen.
We're a generous province, and so they got caucus funds and official party status. They get more time in QP, and they took a lot of those. I don't know what the final number ended up being, but they took some of those caucus funds and they produced this documentary. I believe it's called "Making a Killing," and the first half of the documentary is what I would call just pure minimization of the harms caused by residential schools.
So
Like,
they used government provided funds that are intended for caucuses to. And I understand that any caucus which has party status gets some funding to do partisan activities for the benefit of their elected MLAs or MPs or whatever level. But you're saying they used this to essentially create a genocide denial documentary.
yeah, I mean, I don't I have to be somewhat responsible here because I don't want to get in trouble. I don't want to, paint broad strokes, but I do think undeniably they are minimizing the harms of residential schools, and they are saying that, a lot of what we've heard or the narratives are just not true. And it's a for me, I was quite disturbed watching it because, we have so much testimony, we have so much history knowing that residential schools were of great harm. And while there may have been
No, it's
some,
disgusting. Like I,
yeah,
I, I
and
am very lucky in that when the fifth grade, when I was in grade school, in elementary school, as a fifth grader, like we had residential school survivors come and talk to our class, like not to the whole grade, come and sit with each individual class in the grade and talk about exactly what happened because our school thought it was. So I always, I was a little shocked that a lot of people apparently didn't know, but two, the idea that it would then be denied is just disturbing to me as well because, like, no, this happened. I've talked to the people who suffered it, who we inflicted upon. I've seen them. It is
yeah,
very real.
and the documentary uses, a former residential school attendee and teacher, and I'm sure that there were some teachers who had good intentions and maybe they were good teachers, but it's like we're talking about the overall system and the harms caused by that system, and those are very much
Yeah, like
minimized.
you can learn math without being stolen from your family
Yeah,
or
and
being
with the
beaten or raped or murdered.
and with the sole intent and explicit intent of, stripping your culture away from you,
No,
right? Like that's undeniable.
the literally it was kill the Indian as they quote.
Exactly.
Like it was absurd. Like the idea that this could somehow become a coherent political ideology as a party is insane to me. But One BC doesn't appear to be a coherent political party, do they?
No. And so going back to the timeline, so you have this breakaway of One BC breaking away from the conservatives, but at the same time, the conservatives were kind of for months dealing with this issue of John Rustad, their own leader, being pretty unpopular, both from the party side and the caucus side, and some of the donors expressing discontent with his leadership. But he, nonetheless, I mean, he survived a leadership review. He got 70% approval, although there were a lot of allegations about shenanigans and rigging the whole system. Accusations again. I can't comment on how real those were, but certainly there were
I have
canceled
a
memberships.
long-standing I've always advocated, like for years at this point, that these nominations and contests should be held by the elections authority in that province or territory or federally, so that there
Yeah.
are no shenanigans or accusations of shenanigans.
Yeah,
Because
because there's always fuckery. If
yeah,
we're being completely honest, all these leadership races, they all have some shady business
yeah,
because they don't have the same transparency
no,
that a general election would have, right? So that I think is a fair conclusion. Absolutely.
no, yeah, and it's how
So
the Americans do it. And like,
totally.
God damn it, like it is one thing they do better than us. It's not the reason they're in trouble right now. It actually may have staved them off for a bit.
Yeah. So John Rustad gets in all this trouble. He fired some people that are very popular within the party. And then finally the party uses the craziest interpretation of the word incapacitation, because there's only three ways that John Rustad could be removed. One was losing a leadership race, which he did not lose. Two was death. Three was
And he's
like
alive.
professional, and he's alive. He's very much
And
alive,
we hope he
you know.
stays alive for a long time.
Absolutely,
Yeah,
yeah. And
he's we don't begrudge him.
three was I guess resignation as well. And then the last one was, all it said was incapacitation, which most people assume means like you're in a coma or you're just not in a state to be able to make any decisions.
But because
And
the party can just interpret their constitution essentially however they want it, and it's very hard for there to be any legal remedy, they deemed him professionally incapacitated.
that's exactly right. Because what they did was they
What
brought
does
this
that
letter.
mean?
Well, this is what they've, again, it's pretty flimsy. I don't think it would hold up in any sort of court of law. But what they argued
I don't
was,
think this would
listen,
hold up in any sort of democratic order.
no, 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 no. So the party basically held up a letter that was authorized by a lawyer that said, listen, more than 50% of caucus wants you gone. And so they argued that because so much faith was lost in his leadership, he was effectively professionally
That's what the
incapacitated.
leadership review is for.
Well, yes, I know. It's crazy. Like it doesn't make any
Oh no,
sense.
I know
Um
you're not
he
defending this. You're just describing what's happened.
well,
Nonetheless, you will see my incredulous reaction perhaps several more times.
yeah, but the funny part is like, aside from the first evening of John kind of standing up for himself saying this is bullshit and a few others supporting him, like there wasn't a ton of pushback. Basically the next morning John just ends up resigning, accepting his fate.
Yeah,
And even I
it's
think within
effectively impossible to stay if more than half of caucus wants you gone. But it's why, like federally, there's stuff like the Reform Act to just make that a proper vote.
Yeah, well, and here's the thing, like despite this being really shady and not making much sense and maybe going against this wasn't how incapacitation was supposed to be interpreted. Any reasonable person would say that. There wasn't any pushback. You didn't have the media writing think pieces about the state of democracy or anything like that. Everyone just kind of accepted that, like, yeah, it's time to go for
I'm
John.
imagining
Which
like
I
a
would
Monty
say,
Python skit of like he's in a coma, and then the guy's like, "No, I'm not." But no, so he decided it was impossible for him to stay. He leaves after a day. Now they have an interim leader, and they're trying to figure out who's going to be a permanent leader. Are there any indications or
yeah,
rules for
they're
the leadership contest?
not yet. I think those are going to be determined by the new year, but it's going to be, I think you have this energy within the Conservative Party of BC right now. They're very excited about bringing in, kind of a fresh face to lead the party,
And I mean, they
hopefully,
were very
in their
close to
minds
a
at least,
majority.
unite. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I got piled on online on election night because on the CBC I said, you had a party that was catering to conspiracy theorists and had gaff after gaff, had really shitty candidates, and they came this close to winning. And there's two reasons for that. One, I think, is, the incredible grit of the organizer, Angelo Isidoro, who I think a lot of people hate him, but he's very good at his job. He's very effective. And the second reason being the BC NDP sucked. They ran a terrible campaign. It should not have been that close by any measure. But here we are. So I think there is a lot of excitement in terms of this leadership race. The candidates that are being bandied about are very fascinating. The top of the list is federal Conservative MP for the North Island here in BC, Aaron Gunn. Some would call him a controversial commentator or political figure. But his lieutenants kind of built the Conservative Party of BC. And so he's got a lot of clout within the party.
There are
And I think,
structural advantages to his benefit.
sure, but I think more than that, there's more of a soft power within the party of just the clout that he has. And
I've always
you've
considered soft power to be part of partisan structure, with how creative
sure.
the interpretations of these rules apparently can be.
No, that's fair. That's fair. I mean, there's another MLA, Harman Bangu, who is a good friend of Aaron's, but he's an MLA and he's interested in leadership. But he's come out straight up and said, if Aaron runs, I'm not going to run. And I think if Aaron does announce, which I suspect he will, he said he's going to make a decision before Christmas. So that's coming up.
What an
I
excellent holiday present. Nobody will hate this. Nobody.
No, what? But I think the party will love it.
Oh no, yeah,
I'm
I
just
mean,
looking at it from their
no, I know. If you're a conservative, you'll like it, but if you're anything other than conservative, you will not like it.
Yeah, no, I mean, fair enough. We'll see kind of how the reactions are. But I think he could be that one unifying force, because I think there's other candidates and they all kind of fall into one of two camps. The first camp is the purity spiral camp. And so Carrie Lynn Finlay, former federal Conservative MP and cabinet minister, she said that she's interested, or at least there's a draft Carrie Lynn Finlay campaign. And, she's branding herself as the real conservative. There's also Caroline Elliott, who is the sister-in-law for Kevin Falcon, failed leader of BC United / BC Liberals. She's come out. She's really been big on the Aboriginal title stuff. She's come out also with this, like, I'm the real conservative person. So you're going to have people that fall into that camp. And then on the other side, you're going to have people that will be really making a pitch about natural resource development, probably driven by the natural resource industry, but also trying to appeal to, blue collar constituents about job creation and that sort of thing. And so a guy like Aaron Gunn, and again, I'm saying this just analyzing it from the conservative point of view, but I think a guy like Aaron Gunn will straddle both of those camps very well, because I think he does speak to a blue collar constituency. I think he is very well connected within the natural resource industry. And at the same time, within conservatives in BC, at least, he is seen as like a true blue conservative. So,
It's a
he
big
enters the
tent that's
race.
hard to
It's a
manage,
foregone
but he may
conclusion.
have what's necessary to do it.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. And I think other candidates, as I said, Caroline Finlay, Caroline Elliott, two MLAs that have been bandied about are Peter Millibar, who is more centrist, and Harman Bangu, who I just mentioned as well. But Harman said he would bow out if Aaron was in the race. And then there's a bunch of business guys like Chris Gardner, Yuri Fulmer, Ian Black, who's actually a former cabinet minister as well. But like those people are more seen as like the business community voices. So basically you have like, you know, purity conservatives, maybe that centrist type conservative, and then the business community. And I think Aaron, aside from the centrism, can straddle the business community and natural resource industry and like the conservative purity test
And the
that I think
centrism
the
is a
party is looking
product
for.
of people who have come over, I'm guessing, from the former BC Liberals, who are the former coalition between right wing liberals and conservatives until that was deemed not conservative enough.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And those people still exist within the conservative movement, right? There's definitely forces that want a more moderate party They want them to focus just on the economy and stay out of the culture war stuff. And then there's elements of, I don't know, I guess they're calling themselves the new right or whatever, that feel like no, culture war is central to the movement. So
And the
we'll see what
coalition
happens.
title
It's
ruling,
fascinating, but
that's been pretty integral to the main culture war in BC, I'm guessing.
yes, yeah, and I think in some ways, the BCNDP have fumbled not only their communications but their strategy and their vision on this file when it comes to Indigenous title. I think there are a lot of fair questions, on public accountability, on what this means for property rights. I think those questions are actually fair, and
And those
there should be a
questions
debate
are
about it.
raised because of
But
the
I think
lack
it's
of modern
difficult.
treaties.
Yeah, and we actually lack a lot of treaties here in BC. We're kind of further behind every other province, but those questions arise because of, you know, uh, cases that have set precedent on Aboriginal title, and the fact that you cannot extinguish Aboriginal
Right.
title.
You can't just,
Right? There's a voice that
there's no
there's
statute of limitations. You cannot just steal the land without any treaty or agreement on how the settler society may use it. Like it's absurd that there aren't even treaties in BC at all. Not even old lopsided unfair treaties, but certainly that there are no modern treaties, and that the supposedly left-wing party to date has never signed one.
I mean, they have been, again, I'm not the expert to talk about this. They've certainly been signing certain agreements with, Haida Gwaii and other nations, which also got a lot of criticism from the conservatives. But at the end of the day, like what I'm saying is, there's voices that are saying, oh, we need to extinguish Aboriginal title, which is just not constitutionally
No.
possible. You can't do that. There's voices on the right that conflate things like land acknowledgements, or again, in the case of one BC, the history of residential schools and what they claim is a false narrative to what we're seeing on Aboriginal title. The two don't have anything to do with each other, right? Like, I get that they're Aboriginal historical issues, but what happened at residential schools has not affected land title. Like, they're just not.
And the
There's no
argu-
causation.
and it's a
Yeah.
sick argument to say, oh, they're only getting title recognized out of pity for this pit, and then they're like, but the pity is overblown. I hate. I very much do not like this.
Yeah, exactly. And even something like land acknowledgements, land acknowledgements don't carry any political weight. We can debate, if they set a cultural tone, but I think they just recognize a history and a connection to the land that
I mean, in
is very
Ontario, our
ceremonial.
land acknowledgements just simply talk about the actual treaties in place. So I think they carry weight in as much as they're recognizing the constitutional reality that exists and that we have a responsibility to.
Well, and land acknowledgements come in all shapes and sizes as well,
Yeah,
right?
we
Like
we need better
here,
ones.
well, and the example I'll give is, governments, when you hear them give land acknowledgements, at least in British Columbia, they say unceded because, again, usually the land, there's no treaty attached to it. So
Exactly.
they'll say unceded or ancestral lands. There are some people on the social justice progressive left that will go even further, and they will say stolen lands. But these are, nonetheless, at the end of the day, they're still just ceremonial acknowledgements as opposed to anything that bears any legal weight. But you have actors conflating that with um, with Aboriginal title. You have actors conflating children learning about our history in schools with Aboriginal title, which, again, they're not related, and it's a
And
really
mind
bad
you,
faith
like
argument.
again, it is completely valid for Aboriginal title to take some precedent here, and people did, whether they understood it or not, they certainly did take on a risk buying land in a place that had never been ceded. There were no treaties, there were no constitutional agreements allowing for its use. Like the lack of Aboriginal title agreement is an ongoing liability, and it is a failure of every BC government to fail to solve it.
Yeah, I would agree with you. And again, like I said, I think unlike the rest of the country, British Columbia is very much behind on the treaty negotiation process, or helping to bring some clarity to this. I don't blame the average homeowner though, and in fact, I probably sympathize with them in terms of concern. But
Well,
my
yeah,
sympathy for that homeowner is then, then I refocus on the people that are making bad faith arguments, or are being
my
unnecessarily
sympathy is for the
provocative,
people
or
who have
yeah.
had their title abrogated without any compensation, mainly. Is
Absolutely. No,
no,
no, no,
and that's
fair.
the
No.
thing. It's like, yeah, the homeowners can't deal with it individually, but also the homeowners as voters have a responsibility to vote for people who will fix the issue. Democracy,
Yeah,
you ultimately
I
get the government you vote for.
for sure. And I understand that argument. I'm just saying, like, I think it's a here's my centrism showing. I just think it's irresponsible to be like, well, the homeowners, they knew what they were getting into. And it's like they didn't really know what they were getting
I don't know.
into. You know,
I
they don't know. Yeah.
I know. It's like I talk a pretty big game, but I'm a bit cynical on things. I do just I'm like, no, I think you like you get what I mean. I do just think the solution here is clear. The and the job of the provincial government is to explain the issue, but they aren't explaining issue because they don't necessarily have a plan in the immediate term to solve the issue because it
Yeah.
would
No, that's
mainly
fair.
involve compensating these indigenous nations.
Yeah, no, and it's hard work, and each nation is not created equal, or they're not all the same, right? They're not
Right, you have to
homogenous, is
go
what I
nation
mean.
by nation. But like
Exactly.
at
So it's a
least for
long
forward
process.
progress is just what we're looking for here.
Yeah,
I think that's the thing. The public would have tolerance for these things if they were explained and if forward progress is shown. That's true on a variety of hard political issues. People understand when something is hard. They just want to see you trying.
totally. Yeah, yeah. It's And so, anyways, going back to where we are, the timeline. So
Yeah.
that was the last day of the BC legislature, at least for this session, where Rustad was out. Crazy season finale. And now we have this addendum where One BC, this breakaway party, they've apparently imploded. They got rid of some senior staff, I believe 3 senior staff members, various different controls of party and caucus on who's controlling the Twitter accounts. So, Dallas Brody has basically been removed from the website and all that stuff. Whether that's the right way to do it or not, who knows? But she's no longer the leader. Her other MLA, Tara Armstrong, has said that she doesn't have confidence in Dallas's leadership. It's very
Well,
confusing,
wait,
but
if it's a two-member party and
yeah,
one of them doesn't have confidence in the other of them and the other's the leader, doesn't that mean it's not a party anymore?
yeah. I mean, that's what you would think, but the problem is like
The
one
legislature's
person,
out of
one person
session.
can, yeah, and one person can remove the party leader. Like, I don't know if there's been the
Maybe the
formal
threshold
process.
should be higher than two. Maybe even just three.
We're on the same page. Trust me.
Like
I've said
don't
that for
have
a long time.
don't have two, but like that's like in Star Wars. It's like the Sith. You have one to hold power and one to crave it. it's not, it's not a
Yeah,
stable
no, I
system.
again, it's not, I guess it's not entirely clear as a recording what's happening with this party, because some people have access to the Twitter and the email and the website, and so they basically removed Dallas Brody. But is Tara Armstrong the leader as of now? Like, it's unclear.
So instead of
It's
one
unclear who's kind of running the
BC,
show, especially.
there's two BC.
Well, yeah, none BC. I mean, it might be none BC by the time we're done.
One BC, two BC, red BC, blue BC.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't know. It's a shit show.
Yeah.
I think there is going to be an effort to unite the right, but then this becomes a big question for the BC Conservatives, because they had lost those three candidates. They also kicked out Eleanor Sturko from the party, and another MLA, Amelia Boltby, had also left the party. So you have five MLAs for one reason or another, whether booted or they left on their own accord, are out of the party. The question now becomes, does the new leader bring any of these people back? And I think there is a hyper awareness that they can't reward people who just took their ball and went home.
Yeah.
And they can't reward people who were dysfunctional within caucus.
Yeah.
And so it's less about, it becomes this issue less about uniting everyone and more about just listen, these people are troublemakers. They've proven to be that. We can't have them on. And again, I'm not accusing anyone of being a troublemaker. I'm just saying that's the thinking of political parties, because political parties function as cults.
Right.
The
Yeah.
loyalty is number one.
And the only thing worse than crossing the floor once to the cult members is crossing the floor twice. Crossing back.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think that the people who were kicked out by John Rustad, and so that would be Dallas Brody and that would be Eleanor Sturko, so only two of the five. I think they actually have a better logical argument of just saying, listen, John fucked up. We'll bring you back. We didn't mean to kick you out. Let's make amends. But I think for the people that had left, I think they have a harder argument because they just took their ball and went home. No one kicked them out of the party.
And there'll
right?
also be judgment about how popular that personal candidate was versus how much of it was just the partisan brand in that right. If it's a safe riding, then they may just pick a new person just for the sake of clean slate.
Totally. Yeah. And especially if those, and again, I don't know the inner workings, but especially if any of those three people who had left on their own accord were already dysfunctional within caucus. If they were already causing problems or there was, consistent HR issues with them with regards to how they got along with everyone else, those things will be taken into account because, like I said, loyalty trumps everything. People think of political parties as like this ideological, purity thing. It's all about a bunch of people being loyal to each other and being willing to do each other's dirty work at the end of the day.
Yeah, there's a reason I did not function well in a political environment. I'm no longer involved with any party federally. Provincially, my involvement is that I have a membership in the Ontario Liberals so that I can vote in nominations if and when they happen, and that's pretty much it. I take the American standard where it's okay to have a registration to vote in nominations, but I'm not doing any organizing or volunteering or donating to anyone ever again.
Yeah, no, and I'm very cynical that way as well. Obviously, in media, you can't really be partisan, but I've been like that for a while, where it's hard to support a party knowing that you have to fall in line on literally everything.
Right.
And I like to nitpick and
well, that's why we have
people.
These jobs, because we don't like to fall in line with the official line.
Exactly. Yeah. So, it's a crazy time in BC politics. I was on CBC on Thursday and I made the prediction that I don't think Premier Eby lasts until the end of 2026 either. I don't think there's any particular win he can get that would boost, like any plausible win that he can get that could boost his popularity. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. My prediction here, and this is very wild, this is not a mainstream prediction, but I think what's going to happen is Aaron Gunn will win their leadership race or, basically be acclaimed perhaps. And then Premier David Eby, in trying to figure out this Aboriginal title stuff, will take the path of least resistance and basically either repeal or, de facto appeal DRIPA, the Declaration of Rights of Indigenous Peoples Act. He'll do that dirty work and then he'll resign. And then the NDP will have a leadership race to try to move forward from that. But that's what I think will happen. Because
that sounds
the government
bad.
Well, and I think the government has done such a poor job in explaining DRIPA, in explaining Aboriginal title to the public, in explaining what the vision is, that people are notably scared. And in some ways, I do think that that's warranted because the government sucks and they're not communicating properly. And I don't think they've been, they haven't put forward the vision of what reconciliation looks like. And so to have people all on the same page of reconciliation, you need to fully explain what it is and what that will look like and how it benefits everyone.
Mm.
And I don't think the government has done that. And so I think that that will, interestingly, probably be Premier Eby's biggest failure. And it'll be, he'll do the messy thing of getting rid of DRIPA, I think, or just watering it down with certain amendments. And then the party's hope will be that that's taken off the table for whoever leads the party next.
Because it always helps in elections to show you're backing away from your principles. That definitely doesn't show weakness and encourage the opposition to find other things to get you to back away from too.
Yeah, but he's done, like, Premier Eby has done that on several files. He's done that on the carbon tax.
Maybe
He's
that's
done
why
that.
they're not popular.
That could be it. Like he's caved on several different files, particularly on the drugs file too, in terms of, now he's saying that decriminalization was a mistake. He's been pushing forth involuntary care in an environment where there's like a 2-month waiting for voluntary care.
No, yeah,
Right.
and voluntary care, like someone who wants to be in rehab and wants to get off drugs will have infinitely more success in treatment because treatment requires cooperation, consent. Like so the idea that we're going to force people in against their will when the people who want to be there can't get in, it's absurd.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I also I really dislike when people go, "Oh, all these people on the downtown east side, we just need to put them in treatment." And it's like, first of all, as we've just said, like we don't have the capacity for voluntary treatment. One, two, even if we did, we also have to understand that there's very low rates of success. We're talking single digits when it comes to involuntary treatment, right? So this will be a very expensive process, which some people would say is probably unrealistic if you have that many people in one facility that don't want to be there.
Right.
Um, and then the other thing that I think we have not properly addressed when it comes to this evolving drug crisis is that if you get one of these users, particularly people that are living on the streets, or are unhoused, if by some miracle you got them clean and off fentanyl, they are going to be on long-term disability. This is not heroin. This is not alcohol. Obviously, those drugs have an effect on your cognitive ability even when you get clean, but the shit mix that's out there on the illicit drug supply has created a lot of brain damage for a lot of people. And so then the question goes, okay, well, are we setting up long-term disability programs for those people?
No.
Are we exactly, right? So that's where I know we're kind of off on a tangent here, but like that's where I get really annoyed with this involuntary treatment, pipe dream, where it's like, well, let's do voluntary treatment first.
It's
And then we can
insidious
start talking
because
about
it's
everything
appearing
else.
to be compassionate while ultimately doing something very cruel.
Well, ultimately, the people I think that there's a lot of people that I think who advocate for that. They just want it out of sight and out of mind.
Well, yeah, and
You know,
that's what I mean. It's like they don't care
yeah,
about what happens to these people. They care about not seeing it. This is my
yeah,
thing when it comes to people are like, "Oh, there's so many homeless people doing drugs," and I'm like, "No, I think homeless people might actually just do drugs at the normal rate people do drugs. You just don't see the people with homes shooting up heroin because they
mm,
do it at home. They
yeah,
do it with the windows blown. Like it's like this doesn't seem to occur to people that they're homeless because their home don't have a home,
yeah,
like, and that surely the drug addiction may be easier to deal with if they had a home.
yeah. No, I completely agree with you. And again, I feel like in some ways decriminalization and safe supply programs were doomed to fail because they could only really succeed in a proper robust social safety net with
Right.
with accompanying services, and I don't think they were.
No, but
So it's easy to be like, oh, of course decriminalization failed, of course safe supply failed, and
it
it's
was
like,
they were
yeah,
set
well,
up to fail. There was
yeah,
no intent of actually providing the off ramp necessary. Like the idea isn't just to let people randomly do drugs in the street. It's not legalization. The idea is to have like an actual pathway where we're like, okay, it's not productive to send someone to jail just because they had a bit of heroin on them. They're not selling it to people. They're not profiting off the misery of others. They're a victim of the misery. Then they shouldn't go to jail for being a victim of. You get what I mean?
Totally. Yeah. Yeah. And so I don't think that there was an earnest effort in any of those policies. And just like I don't think there's going to be an earnest effort when it comes to involuntary treatment.
No,
Right?
I don't
Like
know.
the
It
capacity is just not there.
frustrates me because my
Yeah.
before he retired, my grandfather he ran at his pharmacy. He ran a methadone clinic in the GTA, and like it was a useful thing. It's like obviously no one was like happy to be there, but it was something that helped people maintain. I won't say sobriety, but it helped them maintain a sense of stability. It's just it's weird how much we've gone backwards. Like
Hmm.
I think we used to be more compassionate about caring for people than we are now, and that goes for both the left and the right. We're in a very selfish and cynical time.
Yeah. Yeah. I would agree with that. We have I did my show last week. We confronted this idea of like food bank usage is at all-time highs, and it's at the rate it's growing, it's unsustainable. And yet at the same time, Canadians are wasting more food than ever,
Yeah.
which I think summarizes a lot of our issues of just like we do still generate a lot of wealth in this country, but it is obviously it'll never be fair. I'm not a commie. I'm not a socialist like you. I don't think it'll ever be, distributed in the most equitable way, but there are limits of
We could be
distribution.
fairer.
Yeah, yeah. Why are we wasting how come all this food gets wasted on an industrial level when there's people going
Right.
hungry,
No,
right?
especially with things like meat. Like I get more upset about people who waste meat than people who waste things that didn't have like a brain. Like I'm not stupid. I know that what the cow or the pig that I'm eating probably wanted to live and had emotions and feelings. So,
Yeah.
like, if I'm gonna kill it, then we should not just eating it, but you should use as much of it as possible. You should be very responsible with it. You should be respectful to what the life you've just taken.
Yeah, Jake, you air fry that rancid meat. You do
Yeah.
not let it go to waste.
Well, you joke, but yeah, it's like I made hamburgers the other day, and then I had one or two left over in the fridge, so we popped them in the air fryer to heat them back up, and then we ate the
No,
rest of
for
them.
sure.
Like that's what
I've
you
listen,
do.
I'm very pro food utilization. Sometimes it happens where something gets a funky smell and you got to throw it out or whatever. But like, yeah, I'm on board,
Well,
and I
we're
think
also
we
Jews
all
who
play a
fled the
part.
Holocaust, so we may have our own like compunctions about food waste that are more
Yeah, fair enough.
psychological.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
Yeah.
So yeah, is that I know we've kind of like danced around a lot of the timeline, but does that kind of make sense of where we're at
Yeah,
in
that
terms of politics?
yeah, some tangents aside, that is a rather fulsome discussion of where BC politics are at right now. And yeah, it's, I guess, to wrap things up, the BC Conservatives are going to figure out their new leader. The BC NDP are giving opportunities to their opposition by just not being competent enough and offering a coherent narrative and coherent policies. And the 1BC may be 2BC or none BC, and we will find that out after the holiday break, I'm assuming. Does that
Yeah,
about that's about
exactly.
sums it up then?
And I would just say heading into 2026, the big challenge for whoever is running and ultimately wins the Conservative Party of BC leadership is being able to unite that party. It doesn't necessarily mean bringing one BC back into the fold. It just means having a leadership where the caucus is all focused and everyone's on the same page. And then the secondary question becomes, well, then how does the BC NDP respond in turn? Will we see a new iteration of Premier David Eby, or as I've predicted, do we see a situation where he sees the writings on the wall and for the good of the party, they turn the page on his his leadership. That's all stuff that we'll see in the new year, and probably I would say within the first half of that year.
Alrighty. Well,
Yeah.
thank you for that very fulsome discussion and a very
Yeah, my
fulsome
pleasure.
first half. Folks, don't go anywhere. We'll be back soon with our guest, Mo Amir, the host of This is Vancouver on Czech News, and we will see you after the break. Today's episode of It's Getting Pretty Late with Jake Landau is brought to you by me. Folks, all of my work is available for free with no paywall at jakelandau.ca. But in order to keep writing and recording, I need money, because money is what makes this show go round. So, if you enjoy my content or find it informative, please consider a paid subscription at jakelandau.ca/subscribe. And please leave a 5-star rating on the show in your favorite podcast app, be it Apple, Spotify, or a secret third thing. Thank you, and enjoy the show. And we are back with our guest, Mo Amir, from This is Vancouver on Czech News, and our first headline topic of the week is from CBC News from Catherine Tunney in the Politics Bureau. Liberals claim other conservatives could defect. Opposition accuses Carney of shady, air quotes, governing. Conservative leader says floor crosser Michael Ma let down voters. Now, for those who are not aware, a second conservative has left the Conservative Party to join the Liberal caucus instead, bringing the Liberals one seat away from a majority, although, as we talked about a bit in the first half, that would be a similar majority to the BC NDP, where they still need to give up a speaker, or I guess pick an opposition speaker, which could be a double-edged sword. But yeah, people are leaving the Conservative caucus, and the Liberals are taunting the Conservatives, saying, we're going to get even more, ha 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 ha. But, like, yeah, as a progressive, I really don't like this, because I think if you are a progressive or anything left of center, Carney pivoting further right to pick up enough conservatives to build a sort of conservative-esque majority is kind of your nightmare next 4 years.
Yeah, he's a great, conservative prime minister so far.
No, and people will be like, well, it could have been Pierre Poilievre, and I'm like, not using the notwithstanding clause is not a good thing. It is the lowest bar imaginable. It's like, well, at least he's not violating your constitutional rights. I would hope not, but also some of these laws might.
Yeah, so I find this, to be clear, this is hilarious. This whole thing is pretty fucking funny, because he's kind of put the opposition on their heels about keeping their caucus together.
Right. I mean, the funniest fucking part is that he went to the Conservative holiday party, didn't pay for the ticket with the assumption that he would pay it later. And I've been to a caucus party 1 year. You do have to pay for your ticket, even if you're an MP, because it costs money to hold these things. And they don't want to use the money of donors or the government to run them, which is actually a good thing, believe it or not. But so he goes there, doesn't pay for his ticket, takes a gift from the Secret Santa without bringing his Secret Santa gift, and then goes over to the Liberal Party the next day.
As a hero. And
he walks up on stage and he's feted. And also in the craziest quote ever, and this is a real video clip, Mark Carney accidentally said on stage, biggest liberal cock.
Wow.
Yeah. He meant to say caucus, but he stumbled. And then everyone in the room started laughing. And I'm like, oh, that's how you know he's not media trained.
Well, this is what we call a low road Larry. He took the low road the entire way. Like you said, the two Christmas parties doing that Rick Rude simultaneous cast on both sides of the field.
To be fair, his Secret Santa gift was like an Amazon Fire Stick. And knowing how much MPs are paid, that's such a cheap ass gift. I would get wanting to leave just because of that.
But that makes it even funnier, right? Because
it's
so petty.
And I don't.
It's
awful, but it's funny.
And I would agree with you that I don't like the way that Mark Carney, our prime minister, is going about to secure himself a majority. Like, this is not the type of politics that I particularly enjoy either.
Because I don't
At
think
this,
this has like happened in the modern era. I guess you could kind of say there's something similar in World War One with the liberal conservative coalition, and then the anti military draft liberals in Quebec kind of got sectioned out for the duration of World War One. But like it's weird to be elected with a minority and then build a majority out of people from another party who you
yeah.
disagreed with on ideology vehemently.
Well, I mean, it's a bit of a mask off moment for Ottawa culture in general, right? Like the power
I always joke
is
every
the
time I go to
priority.
Ottawa, bad things happen to me.
Yeah, I mean, again, these are people, and I'm talking about all politicians here. These are people that largely, there are some good folks, obviously, but they largely operate out of power and career ascension. This is not about principles or like some sort of vision in the
It's
country.
like a
And again,
company
this is,
town if the company was society.
yeah, yeah. It's really petty high school drama, which we all engage in to some degree. But this, with this, the stakes are just so much higher in terms of consequences for everyone. So, I don't like it, but it is hilarious. I also don't think that Pierre Polyev is facing, the types of divisions within his caucus or party that a lot of people want to draw from these defections. I do think that they're very worried about the optics. Like, they're almost more worried that the hype of a divided caucus will end up becoming a divided caucus.
Right.
So they're really trying to clamp down on that. And that's why
I mean, it
as soon as
certainly
someone
is a
leaves,
widening crack. You have one who's resigning and not going to another party, in addition to these two who have left for the Liberal Party. Like, I'm sure there are people over the holiday break who are thinking I could become part of a majority government.
maybe, I don't know. Like, I just don't think that the issue, because I don't see him losing the leadership review is what I'm
Oh no,
saying.
I
Like, I think,
there's a difference between caucus support and party and member support. Like the membership likes Polyev. The problem is that caucus does not like him.
again, I don't know how true that is. I mean, maybe you have insights that I don't. I'm not particularly sold on that idea
It's my
yet.
read on the situation, but
But what I would say is,
the reason I
but
read
Jake,
that from the situation is because conservatives just have such strong instincts to fall in line within the party and stand behind the leader before you push them under the bus, that the idea of like open floor crossing in multiples like within a month, it's not a normal thing, and I don't know that this is the last one.
no, I don't think it's the last one either. And
It,
again, we're going back to recognizing that politicians are opportunists at their heart, speaking in a, again, very general level. Um, I think the one thing that's missing from this idea of a full-on caucus revolt is that there's no clear alternative. With Aaron O'Toole, Pierre Poilievre was waiting in the wings to take that mantle.
no, there's a clear
Um,
alternative, Jamil Giovanni.
you think so?
Oh,
Okay,
I don't
maybe.
like him, but why do you think he's going on this tour around the country getting the names and phone numbers and emails of all of these young conservative men? Like he's building a base of volunteers and supporters that he'll activate whenever there's a leadership contest. Like it's
Yeah,
exactly what
yeah,
Pierre
fair.
Polyev did when Aaron O'Toole was leader.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
I mean, I don't know if Jamil's at that level that Pierre was
Oh no,
prior
I'm not
to
saying
O'Toole
he'll
being
be as
ousted,
good
but
as
okay,
it,
that's a
but
fair
yeah,
argument.
if
I
he's
just,
the one in the lead, then he's the front runner by default.
yeah, I just think that again, I don't think that they're as divided as we see. They're certainly I would argue voluntarily making these pledge of allegiances and pledge of loyalties. Roman Baber's out there uh, assuring everyone that he supports Pierre Poilievre, and so are other MPs. And again, I think he will survive his leadership review. I think it's going to depend where the polling ends up going through 2026. If they're continually stagnant and if they start losing clear ground to the liberals in polls, then there may be more of a push. I just don't see I don't see him being ousted in the next couple months, I
I
guess,
there
is what
there's
I'm
I mean
saying.
there's an argument I've heard where liberals would want another floor crossing to not happen until after they lock him in as leader with the leadership review because they like running against him. I think that I never like that kind of reasoning. I think people who think they're smart enough to pick their preferred opponent usually end up being Hillary Clinton versus Donald Trump.
Yeah, no, I actually agree with you, and I think in terms of getting one up on someone, you take your opportunity when it's presented. I think this whole idea of like we're gonna wait for the other floor crossings, like just do it now.
Yeah.
Like who cares?
Oh
Just
yeah.
work on it now if that's what you're doing. Like what is this
Especially because
plan?
you'd want your majority as soon as possible.
Yeah, like what is this planned obsolescence of political parties? It's just I don't get it. I don't like that.
Planned
But again, these are
obsolescence.
but this is how they think. Like, no, I mean, this is the problem is like you have these strategists that this is how they think. And I guess we'll see. We'll see what happens. I don't think Pierre's in trouble
No.
yet. But again, they are definitely very hyper aware of the optics. And I think there's the worry that the hype and the optics turn into something that is tangible and real.
On a final bit for this story, do you think it'll be good for the NDP to not have to worry about being the one seen as propping up the government and have 4 years to figure out what they're doing?
Yeah, I mean, it takes the pressure off for sure because they don't want to go to an election anytime soon. I don't think the conservatives
Right.
do either,
Which is
but
funny. You would think that you would want to go to an election soon to get back to party status again. But the other thing is just that you don't have the money to run an election again anytime soon.
yeah, they don't have the money. And again, I don't even think they have the value proposition at this point in
No.
terms of what this party stands for. I think it would be smart if they leaned into, you might not like this, but I think leaning into some of the populist left tendencies and so becoming more of perhaps a labor party than
Why
the
wouldn't I
other.
like that?
I don't know.
I am
You're trying to me as a social
I'm a
justice warrior type.
I'm a socialist. Do you think I don't like unions? They're like the basic building block of the whole thing. It doesn't work without unions.
No, but what I'm saying is they have to take a softer stance on some of the other social justice issues, perhaps, because I don't think they're necessarily in
I think you
vogue
can do what
at the
Rob
moment.
Ashton does and just communicate it in the right way. He's just
No,
like, we don't need to worry about that. Division is the weapon of the boss. Let's talk about your wages. Like, cool.
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
That's why I think he's the best
No,
suited.
yeah. So, like, there's a pathway out for them. I think, depending
Yeah.
on how this leadership race goes, they could be more competitive than we think in a sooner time than we think. But yeah, majority would be an interesting next 4 years. And technically, I think they can stretch out to a 5 year term from when Parliament first sits. According to the Constitution, it's just usually 4 years. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
And to call one last thing to call back to the conversation in our first half. Then there's a question about Aaron Gunn, right? So if Aaron Gunn leaves to then go into provincial
that's
politics,
true. That's one
then you
fewer.
have a by-election in the North Island, which has generally been an NDP stronghold. And certainly I think Aaron won by like, don't quote me on this, but I want to say it was sub
And once
40%.
he's resigned, there's a functional majority for the Liberals.
Exactly, right? So this could all work out in a way for the Liberals where
Although I
they have
think
a
Gilbo
majority.
and Freeland may also resign in the future because there's going to be a
Well,
sec. I know from my liberal sources there's going to be a second bigger cabinet shuffle to accommodate uh, general shifts and that beyond the mini one we saw with Gilbo leaving.
yeah. Well, how does Christia Freeland? How is she still an MP? Like, doesn't she work out of London now? Like, I, some
Well, when
right
your
wing chat.
majority is this thin, who needs moral coherency?
Well, some like I
Has
think I
the taking of
posed.
conservatives by this liberal prime minister not proven there's no moral coherency anymore? Was
Yeah,
there ever?
no, there wasn't.
This is what I appreciate about Trudeau. At least he pretended. I know he didn't really care, but at least he pretended.
He really pretzeled himself into trying to put on a face.
Yeah.
Yeah, Sure.
I miss when our leaders at least felt the need to pretend is the thing. It was
Yeah.
better than not caring at all.
Oh, very true, very
Yeah.
true. But I mean, we'll see. We'll see. I do think that at the end of the day, the liberals will have a functional majority, and we probably won't get. I don't think we'll get. I don't think we'll get a federal election next year.
No,
I know a lot of people think that we are, but I just don't see it.
no, not with the current trend we're seeing here.
No, no.
Alrighty. Moving on to our second headline topic of the day from the Globe and Mail from Marie Wolfe in Ottawa. MPs remove religious exemption from hate speech laws. Folks, there is something called Bill C9. I mostly do not like it because it would create bubble zones that restrict your inherent right to protest outside things like places of worship. I'm opposed to that on a very simple basis that sometimes places of worship do things worth protesting, like, say, maybe a pastor or whatever there has inappropriate relations with a child, or maybe some other thing. You get the idea. It's very, or maybe there's like a land auction for the West Bank for settlements. You get the general idea that there are cases where if they do conduct that is objectionable in wider society, it may be acceptable for people to protest it, and why it shouldn't be carte blanche banned, and why that would violate charter rights. But there is an amendment to Bill 9, which I actually do like, and I think it should be a bill on its own, separate. And the Bloc have snuck it in there because right now the Liberals do have a minority government. So as part of a deal with Justice Minister Sean Fraser, who then got the deal by the Prime Minister officially after some initial quabbling over whether or not the Prime Minister approved, there will be an amendment to the criminal code to Canada's hate speech laws. Now, currently, there is an exemption for our hate speech laws where if you are citing a religious text as as a quote, you can escape prosecution for hate speech. In exchange for supporting the main part of Bill C9, the Bloc got the Liberals to include removing this religious exemption for hate speech. What it means is that you can no longer quote the parts of the Bible telling you to stone gay people without it being hate speech. And I support this, although it seems every religious organization in the country does not. Mo, what are your thoughts?
Jake, yeah, sorry. I think you cut out there towards the end. What was the question?
Oh yeah.
I got
Oh,
the
sorry.
setup.
No, yeah. I was just asking, Mo. What are your general thoughts on on this specific part of Bill C9, the whether or not there should be a religious exemption to hate speech?
So I'm going to zoom out a little bit here and not particularly talk to the bill, but just talk to this idea of speech and how we restrict it. I think hate speech laws on their surface look really good. And there's obviously black and white examples of things that we could call hate speech, but there's a lot more gray area. And these laws then end up being weaponized against people or in a way that I don't think is necessarily productive.
I
I
mean, the
like
Supreme Court
yeah,
of Canada said that Holocaust denial might not even. There are very specific criteria federally for what hate speech you have to like essentially be calling for like the imminent murder of an identifiable group.
exactly. Yeah. And so that's where I feel like I want tougher laws is when it comes to actual threats of violence or glorification of violence or provocations of violence. Then I'm like, yeah, for sure. Like, let's go all in. It's the other stuff that I don't know. I don't like an environment where it is too gray because then you'll have people saying that, perhaps protesting the support of a foreign country that's engaged in something terrible, war crimes, whatever, that is hate speech. So, I'm very careful around stuff like that. I do think that people should have obviously religious freedoms as long as they don't impinge upon someone else in terms of, again, the promotion of violence against others and things like that. Um, so that's kind of just where I stand generally when it comes to this stuff. I also feel like in this is we're really going off the rails here, but one of my most unpopular opinions is that I think young men in particular need to go through the rite of passage of being cold clocked at some point, because the visceral feeling of being punched in the face humbles you in a way that you know what kind of things you can say in public and what kind of things you don't. And I think we need to instill some of that
I get what you
respect
mean. Like
again.
like
Yeah.
technically it's assault, but someone who knows they can say whatever horrible thing without consequences will keep on saying horrible things without
That's what I'm saying.
consequences.
I'm
Yeah.
not pro assault. I'm just
No,
saying at
yeah.
some point
No,
we should all go through
I
this
get what you
ceremony.
mean. It's like I'll be like downtown in Toronto and some random person will shout out the N-word, and it's like the reason they feel comfortable doing that is because no one has hit them yet.
Yeah, exactly. And you see that type of behavior online all the time, right? And people hide behind anonymous accounts and all that stuff. But it's like, I just think that there needs to be social, not necessarily legal, but social consequences for openly trying to be provocative. And you and I perhaps take those risks when we tweet or we say things in public or on public record. But I think that everyone needs to be fully aware that like words matter, words mean something. And if you're going to, no one's going to criminalize you. But at the end of the day, if people are going to be upset about it, you can't turn around and cry because you chose to be provocative or you
Right.
chose to be an asshole.
And like the thing with this law, and the reason I ultimately like I support this particular amendment, like removing a religious exemption for quoting a religious text, is I mean on the face of it, it's stupid. Like the idea that it's illegal for me to say gay people should be stoned to death, but it would be legal for me to say that followed by Leviticus something something. It's absurd. Like.
Yeah, I agree. We agree there. Yeah.
Yeah, and like it's like there context matters, of course. Like someone studying this in a class is obvious it's different. Like, but I mean that's kind of the Mein Kampf exemption in Germany. You can get copies of Mein Kampf in Germany, but they're annotated copies
Right.
that are used as study guides for studying hate and discrimination in classes. Exact, you get what I mean. Like it's not just
Yeah.
available on the shelf. Like, and I know people are sensitive about it because, you know, it's the Bible or the Quran or like all these other very important religious texts that are very close to people's personal psychology. But
Mhm.
I do think people should appreciate, you know, as a queer guy myself, I do not like the idea that there's some sort of exemption religious people get for discriminating against me or discriminating against women, and that it's just supposed to be considered okay and on equal terms to the things actually inherent. Like, and this is where it gets complicated because I as an atheist I try to be respectful of everyone's personal beliefs, but I had at the end of the day I have a hard time being told, oh, it's okay for a religion to make the men and women sit separately, and I'm like, well, no, like one of these things in my head is real and one of these things is not.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it comes down to, you know, on the speech element. I think you said it very eloquently. Like, if it's hate speech without a religious citation, then it should be hate speech, even if it has a religious citation. I think um that's very fair, right? Like, and that's actually a great way to kind of means test um whether something or should be hate speech or not. Like, I don't think that that's should be some magic power that you get to hide behind.
Right,
But then the
because if
question,
it was a
yeah,
defense, that's just what every homophobe would do endlessly.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
they would just say Leviticus something something like immediately after, like it's some magic spell, and dare you to punch them and get arrested.
yeah. I mean, yeah,
So it's about like the peace of people to be able to go about freely in society without public harassment.
totally. Yeah. And we're on the same
Yeah.
page there. But again, you're going to have in religion, and this is all religions, if we're being
Oh
honest,
yeah.
like you're going to have things that are said in their places of worship that maybe you and I, as two secular people, would not particularly subscribe to or find palatable. But should we be policing that I don't know,
I guess
like probably not.
complicated because, like, as a Jew, I mean, I'm an atheist Jew, but I'm a Jew because that's kind of just how it works. Like, I do kind of police that to somewhat in Judaism. Like, I know me and a lot of other, like, left wing Jews or even just reform or conservative Jews are like, can you believe the Orthodox still make men and women sit separately? Like, when I went to my friend's wedding in Montreal at a synagogue, and I was excited because it was the first time I've been to a synagogue in Montreal where men and women didn't have to sit separately. And I'm like,
Hmm.
finally, it's almost like we live in the 21st fucking century and women are not considered something to be separated away. It's,
Yeah, and then certainly in mosques, that's the culture as well. I don't find that super offensive because it's just the rules of the way they do it, right? Again, I'm not
I
a
know
fan
it's
of
their
it. I'm just
rules.
not.
I just
Yeah,
find them to be offensive and discriminatory rules. I
yeah,
know
fair enough.
it's
Yeah.
easy for me to say as someone who's secular and doesn't think they're like directly handed down by a god. But the flip side is like if I thought God was telling me to be a bigot, I wouldn't believe in that God. Like, well, maybe I'll believe in them, but I wouldn't like them.
What I'm saying is though the separation of men and women at those places of worship has no impact on my life, your life, or anyone else's. Everyone is there voluntarily. If someone is there involuntarily, sure, I'm concerned, but if that's what
It
everyone is
the thing
ascribing
is
to, then
it
whatever.
depends because I've been to we my family's been to funerals where we
Mhm.
didn't know men and women would be separated. It wasn't
Mm,
necessarily what the person being buried would have wanted. For that woman, for her woman friend, but you get what I mean.
yeah,
Like, there are cultural pressures because what if you're going to your friend's wedding? You don't want to not go, but it's also like it's dehumanizing, and also yes, the parts of these places for the women are worse and less upkept and in lower quality than the men's parts. And I'm tired of pretending that isn't a common thing across a lot of religions that do this. Like they don't.
no, that's fair, but they're all there voluntarily, and so is it the role of the state to police seating arrangements at places of
I
worship?
know
Like
it.
I don't. I'm just like
I don't
I
know.
don't see
Yeah,
it. I don't buy it.
that
Yeah.
isn't part of the law. The law is just
No, no,
saying
for sure. Yeah.
the law is just saying you can't quote parts of religious text that would otherwise be considered hate speech without some sort of, contextual argument around it, which is
Yeah.
perfectly reasonable. But I think it's fair to have like social judgments about religions that
Sure.
don't but yeah, it's like for folks at home, don't worry. I'm not coming with my inquisition to like overthrow your mosque or your temple or your church. Like, just we're just having some honest discussions.
Totally.
We're
Yeah.
all good. We're all good in the hood.
Absolutely.
Final topic of the day before we let you go, Mel. From the Vancouver Sun, from Alec Lazenby, Metro Vancouver mayors call for province to roll back housing legislation amid concerns about eroding autonomy. A group of 16 municipal leaders have written a letter to Premier David Eby, voicing concerns about what they feel is an erosion of autonomy. Now, I read this, and I'll be honest, Mo, this is actually one thing I actually agree with David Eby on, and I think he's doing correctly. I think he should actually be intensifying even further against their will. The problem is, like, the reason for folks who aren't aware, their province has imposed minimum density standards now of quadplexes, and these cities can no longer prevent you from building something of that density and tell you, no, you can only have a single family detached house. It isn't like super density. Like a quadplex is pretty modest. And like when you see them in Toronto, they're like, oh, these look pretty nice. We should have more of these. These are a great way to add. So I have very little sympathy for these municipal leaders complaining that they're now forced to allow them, especially because the argument that they create a significant burden on things like sewers and electricity does not hold serious weight. The one thing is, yes, you do need some more schools, of course, but yeah, that's a valid complaint, but it isn't a reason to prevent people from building housing entirely, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think this is a shades of gray topic for sure. I do also commend the province for leading on municipalities to approve development of more housing, approving approving more housing. I think the argument holds particularly true around something like SkyTrain or mass transit, where the province is putting in massive investment, and often the federal government is as well. And so you need to densify quite a bit around those
Right, you're
transit
not
hubs,
building a
because what's the
metro
point?
line to have a single family detached house beside it. But the problem is this actually happens a lot in
Exactly, right?
Toronto, where like they have a facade of density on the street itself, and then like less than a block off the subway, it's all single family house, and it's absurd. Like where it's per and people don't realize that it creates higher property taxes. Like you are able to split the tax burden across a wider base when there's more density because you get what I mean. Like the property taxes for a multiple unit dwelling are split up between the residents, either directly if it's a condo or if it's an apartment, indirectly through rent. It's good for budgets. It's good for improving revenue while maintaining a level of service, or improving revenue to improve services. And it's just, I don't have much sympathy for the municipal governments that in this day and age are still trying to block housing in Vancouver. Like, density is not going to kill you. It may, in fact, save you and let your children grow up in the same neighborhood that they were raised in.
But ultimately, to play devil's advocate here, these municipalities are losing um, certain scopes of power, which I
Oh,
think
yeah, that's
is,
true. Like,
yeah,
they're,
definitely a fact. It's
yeah.
definitely a factor, right?
Oh,
Of
yeah, I
like
recognize
you,
that the province is taking away jurisdiction that used to belong to the municipalities. I just don't care. Like
no, and I
it's for a
respect that.
net good that will benefit society at large, and the
What I
municipalities were all doing the wrong thing, so I'm okay with this.
Right. Sorry. So okay, you cut out again there.
Oh, oh, sorry.
So
Well,
what I would say though is like, again, I think around transit hubs and that type of thing, it makes sense. I think housing targets in terms of housing approvals in a market where no one is building anything becomes pragmatically just difficult to say, like, you need to approve X amount of development, but if the developers aren't actually coming in with proposals, it becomes confusing. There also may be some development proposals that don't make sense. I'm not trying to be a NIMBY here, and I'm certainly, I like the spirit of the legislation and what the province has been doing, because it goes against NIMBYism, but there absolutely may be practical concerns about upzoning certain areas because of things like sewage. And I know you kind of joked about that, but like sewage infrastructure in parts of the city are very much behind, just because it's not a sexy policy file in a municipal election to say we're going to invest billions or whatever in a new sewage system. It's not a shiny new toy. So again, I'm a little more mixed about this overall situation. I think the municipalities have a point,
but it's,
but I can
eventually
certainly
someone
understand
has
what.
to force them. Like, if they're not going to preemptively upgrade the sewers, someone's just going to have to build housing there and then force them to upgrade it out of pressure.
I suppose so. Yeah, I mean, I guess you could
Yeah.
look at it
And that's my thing.
that
It's
way.
like the province is acting because the municipalities have failed. They've been citing sewage and stuff like that as a problem for decades. And I'm like, okay, so why haven't you upgraded the sewage yet?
Well, this is maybe why the carrot works better than the stick, right? It's like, okay, we'll do a rapid transit SkyTrain line, but we need these guarantees. Okay, we will help fund a wastewater plant in your community, but we need these other guarantees, right? So I think, again, it's I can understand the argument of the province imposing this as opposed to negotiating deals, which it's supposed to do. But as we've talked about in the first half, this is a government that does, like most governments, wants to take the path of least resistance as opposed to the hard work of negotiating um, fair deals.
Right. I mean, I'll be honest, I'm such a YIMBY on that. I don't believe it should be that they have to allow at least quadplexes. I think there should be a law requiring all new builds be a minimum of a quadplex.
Mm.
Nothing less than a quadplex allowed to be built. No more
What
single
a
family homes built ever again.
what about my freedom, bro? What about my property rights, bro?
Like I look at countries like Singapore, where being land strapped is actually a very real problem, and there would be no such tolerance for these kind of things. Like there are no like large single family manses because there's no land for that. And it's like this is the thing. Vancouver and Metro Vancouver do have geographical limits. At a certain
Mhm.
point, intensity does need to happen. Like we're North America is very behind a lot of the world, and I don't think people understand the more people are in a city, the more it does economically, the more of a market it is for each other to buy and sell things. It is good for a city to grow, to have new people, to I'm tired of excuses, and I know some excuses may have actual problems that need to be fixed, but eventually you have to actually solve those problems if you're going to keep using them as an excuse.
But the backbone of that growth has to be mass transit, right? Like, because we
Oh,
can't
of
rely
course.
on just building out bigger highways or whatever. I mean,
No,
it'll
no,
be
no.
very limited there. And so you have to make it better than getting into your car and driving somewhere. And I think that's where, like, the transit file is where I think should be driving
I think we should
density.
demolish the highways, to be entirely honest with you. Like,
We don't have one going through the city of Vancouver. We're very lucky that way. We're not like
yeah,
Toronto.
it's nice, right? Like,
Yeah.
I wanted the gardener to be torn down. Instead, she uploaded it to the province. I'm like, no, you should have blown it up with dynamite. We could have had a city there.
Yeah.
Uh,
So, anyways, we'll see. I don't think this is going away, but this is again, circling back and going full circle with our first half. This is another issue facing the premiership of David Eby. He doesn't have a ton of allies, um, really supporting his government, whether that is, municipalities or even certain groups within his own coalition,
and it's a very
seem to be
thin
lukewarm on him.
and the majority government is very thin. So, like, it could be that that could change as well before any election happens.
True, but to their credit, I think the BCNDP has been very well disciplined,
Mm.
right? They're certainly way more than the official opposition, but I think their discipline to one as party discipline, voting together and all that stuff is very high. But then I think they do a good job keeping tight-lipped about their own internal strife.
Right.
You kind of hear about these rumblings here and there, but like
Oh, I don't
no one's
even
spilling their
necessarily mean
guts.
like strife. I just mean people retire.
Yeah. Oh
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah. Yeah. Fair.
And that's the thing the liberals are going to have to deal with federally too. Like they have people
Yeah.
who are going to be retiring, and that may adjust the very thin majority that Carney thinks he might get. So, yeah, a lot of fun. It would be great if some of these governments were a bit less thin and a bit more multi ideological, or at least more collaborative across party lines. It would be fun. It would be less cynical. It'd be a better time.
Yeah. Unfortunately, that's not the system we have.
Nope. Fun thought, though. Mo,
Yeah, fun
thank
thought.
you so much for joining the program today. It has been an absolute pleasure to have you, and hopefully we'll have you back again in the new year.
Oh yeah. Well, no, we have to see if any of my theories came to fruition and you can shame me about how wrong I was. Please hold me to account.
Oh, no, no shame. Just jokes. Alrighty. Mo Amir, everybody,
Anytime.
from This is Van Color on Check News. And that'll do it for this week's episode and this season of It's Getting Pretty Late with Jake Landau. Thank you all for listening. We've got through 42 episodes this season, which is pretty cool. We will be back next January for some more content for you. We'll have new guests, returning guests, and a bunch of fun. But all of you go off, enjoy your holiday season, and spread some cheer. Thank you, folks, and see you in the new year. Bye-bye. This is the end of the show. Bye.